Okay, I think we're live. I'm just refreshing my dashboard here to verify that. Okay, yeah. All right, and just verifying I was live. Okay, how's it going, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to install Ubuntu 18.04. I know it's been out a while. Some of you may have heard about it before, or maybe you're new to Linux and have always wanted to try it out. Uh, Whatever the case may be. But today I'm going to show you how to install Ubuntu. And first thing you want to do is you want to go to ubuntu.com and you'll be presented with this web page that we're currently looking at. Uh, the thing that you're interested in on the web page is going up to the download section up here on the bar, and you click that, and then you'll have Ubuntu Desktop, Ubuntu Server, which is good if you want to start your own server. That would probably be better than downloading the desktop, which we're about to do. Ubuntu Internet of Things, and Ubuntu Cloud. So what we're interested in today is Ubuntu Desktop. So you can install the 1810 if you don't want to install the 1804. The difference is the 1810 it only has support for I think about 6 months. They're actually getting ready to come out with a I think 1910 or 1904. I'm not sure. But the 1804 long-term service, they always have an LTS at the end of it. It means long-term service, which means that your installation will actually be supported. I think it's until 2021. So you'll keep continuing to get updates and whatnot. Even when you get close to that point, you'll be able to upgrade to the next version of Ubuntu at that point. It's not like you're stuck like, oh, I'll have to reinstall Ubuntu. No, there's a way of upgrading past that when that time comes. But you'll still get updates without having to go past 1804 if you install this one. So what you'll do is you'll click it, and it'll give you this download page, and it'll be presented with the download button. I'm not sure if that's actually showing up, but it did show up a download for me. No, it didn't show up in OBS. So yeah, you'll be presented with a download button, and you can download it just like any old file you do. It shows up as an ISO file, and then what you'll want to do after you do that is you'll go over to let's see, what was the name of that program? I'm not really sure what the website is, so we're going to look for it. It's Rufus that I use. So you just type in Rufus in Google, and it should be the first link, and it is rufus.ie. So you'll go here. This is one way of doing it. You don't have to use this program, but this is the one I use. There are other programs that you can use to do this, but this is the one I always use. So you'll just come here, and you'll see the download right here. You can't click this, but you'll see last updated, and it actually gives you in bold the current version of Rufus. So you'll just click that, and then you'll be presented with a download button. You download it, and then you can open it. And I'm actually going to switch here and show you guys the Rufus window so we can actually work through this together. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so you'll be presented with this Rufus window, and This is literally all the entire application. You don't have to install it. As soon as you download it from the Rufus website, you can just open it right then and there. It works fine. So the only thing you're interested in here is where it says device. Right now I have no USB device plugged in to write to, but if you did, it would probably show it right here. It would have it already selected. If it didn't, or you have multiple USB keys plugged in, it would show them as a list here, but typically you would only have one plugged in. If you're like me, you would have it plugged in just for this, and that would be it. The next thing you're interested in, don't really worry about this where it says disk or ISO image. What you'll want to do is come over to this button where it says select. So you'll click that, and then you'll click the downloaded the downloaded ISO that you picked. So it would be Ubuntu, and you click select, and it'll automatically switch to the proper settings that you should have for your device. Right now mostly everything is grayed out, but that's because I don't have an actual device put in. But after you do that, you would hit start, and it will begin writing. It will actually show the status right here. It'll begin writing to the thumb drive or flash drive, whatever you want to call it. And then once it finished, it'll pop up a message saying, "Hey, I finished." So that's Rufus. So now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to show you guys what you do to install this on your system, or at least what you can do with the image that you downloaded is once you plug the USB drive into your computer and boot off of it, then you actually have the option of running Ubuntu right off of it. The only negative part about doing that is, for one, you don't have a secure system because your root or administrator account is essentially wide open. You don't really have any passwords set. So I wouldn't use the live boot version for anything that you're going to do any serious computing on, like checking your bank account or whatever. But it's good to play around with, and you can see if it works good on your system and everything before you actually install it. So let me show you what the installation process looks like. I got my virtual machine here. This isn't actually booting off a flash drive, but it'll look exactly the same. So start this up. You'll have to bear with me because it's going to resize the window several different times as it senses what I'm trying to do. Okay, I wonder why it's not booting. Oh, actually, yeah, it was booting. Okay. It's just my slow machine I have here. So you'll get to this nice start screen. This is pretty much what you'll see, after you install it. It's pretty much what you'll see every time that you boot up the machine. Okay, and again, bear with me, guys. This machine's crawling along here. Okay, so we're getting into the desktop environment here. Now, when you do this on an actual machine, I'm doing it in a virtual machine on a laptop right now, so it's pretty slow. But when you do this on an actual machine, it'll be much faster. Okay, let me see if I can resize the window here. I know what you guys are having trouble looking here. Let's see. Okay. I hope this won't be cut off too much, but you'll be presented with try Ubuntu or install Ubuntu. Again, you can click the try button, and it'll allow you to try Ubuntu out before you actually install it. It's actually kind of nice, so you get to see if the machine works and whatnot. Again, I'm running this on a virtual machine, so I already know that it's probably going to work just fine. So I'm going to hit the install Ubuntu button. And then we presented with preparing to install Ubuntu. Do you want to, let me make sure my OBS is still, yeah, you guys can see what's going on. Okay, so you'll be presented with download updates while installing Ubuntu. I'm not going to click this because it'll make the installation last longer, but this is kind of a nice option. That way, after you get done installing, you don't have to go through installing updates. After you have finished your installation, you can actually begin using your new operating system. And then you have the option of install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware, flash, MP3, and other media. This allows you to install proprietary, it installs proprietary software, rather, so that if you have a graphics card such as Intel or I think even some NVIDIA drivers, a lot of NVIDIA drivers, they're proprietary in nature and they don't normally come with the operating system. That'll enable that. The MP3 codec, it doesn't normally come installed automatically because it's proprietary. It's not a free codec, so it installs all that. There's just it enables a lot of proprietary stuff. I'm not going to click it because this is just a demonstration, but most of my installations I end up clicking that because why not? So we hit continue. And then it says installation type. This computer currently has no detected operating systems. What would you like to do? Now, if you're trying to install this on a computer that you've never installed Windows on, or you removed all the hard drives and you're just installing it fresh with a brand new hard drive, this is the kind of screen you'll see. The reason it didn't find any operating systems is because, again, I'm running this on a virtual machine and I only have one drive that has nothing on it that we're going to install this on today. But if you had Windows on here, it would probably say, hey, we detected Windows. Would you like to install it alongside Windows? Would you like to erase Windows and install Ubuntu? Or would you like to do something else? It'll give you those kind of options. So if you had Windows already installed, probably for a new person, I would probably pick install alongside Windows, and it'll actually do all the stuff behind the scenes for you, so you don't have to go through the effort of trying to figure out, hey, how do I partition my hard drive and whatnot. If you're new to that, I would probably stick with install alongside Windows. But for today, since I'm going to assume that you guys never, have a computer that maybe you never installed Windows on, or you have Windows on it and it's an older machine and you don't care about what's on it and you want to delete everything. This would do the same thing. This is pretty much the same option as remove Windows and install Ubuntu. So we're going to leave it as erase disk and install Ubuntu. So I'm going to hit install now. And then it'll say, if you continue, the changes listed below will be written to disk. Otherwise, you'll be unable to make further changes manually. Or you will be able to make further changes manually. Basically, all this is a warning that says, hey, I'm getting ready to write to your hard drive and erase a bunch of stuff and put more stuff on it. Do you want to actually allow me to do that? If you hit go back, you're just stuck with the screen again, and you'd have to hit install now if you pick something different. So we're fine with it writing to the drive, so we're going to hit continue. Next, you'll want to pick your where you live. I live in the Eastern time zone. If you live in any of the other time zones, Mountain time zone, Eastern time zone, Central time zone, Pacific time zone, then you would click your appropriate time zone. It does give you these kind of like bullet points or balls or whatever you want to call it, so that if you don't really understand time zones or where they are on the map, or you really don't know, you can click where you live or approximately where you live, and it'll highlight the appropriate time zone for you. Such as I have a friend that lives in Newfoundland, for example, and you can see how tiny his time zone actually is. So for now, we're going to stick with Eastern time zone. It does a pretty good, decent job. I don't know how it does it behind the scenes, but it does a pretty good, decent job about finding what time zone you're currently in. It probably goes by your system clock or some. I don't know. Okay, next, after you hit continue on the previous screen, you'll be presented with your keyboard layout. If you're from the US, the default is probably going to be what you're going to want. If you're from another country, or your keyboard uses some sort of different setting, a different layout than normal, then you'll pick it over here. If you use a different language, then I know if you set it to English UK, I think if you hit the actual dollar sign on your keyboard, if you have a US keyboard, it'll show the pound rather than showing the dollar. So yeah, that's kind of an example of like how they're different. So anyway, if you're from the US and you have a US keyboard, most likely English US and then English US is just fine. So it's a little bit off the screen, but I think that's our next button right there. Oh, but it's not the back button. Oh, that's actually the back button. Okay, well, I hope I can get this actually installed. Oh, here we go. We just scooted over. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. If you ever install anything, if you install Ubuntu using a virtual machine, it actually stays at this tiny little window until you install your VirtualBox add-ons. So the next screen after picking your keyboard layout, you'll enter your name. So I'm just going to put Jason as my name, and then it'll give you a suggested computer name. This one was Jason dash VirtualBox, and it'll give you a suggested username. I'm just going to stick with the defaults, but you can call your any of these anything you want. I will say that for computer name, it's not. If you don't know what a computer name is, if you don't know what a computer name is, you're probably going to be lost when I tell you this. But if you use Windows shares, for example, you'll be using this to actually access your shares on this computer. So you'll want to name it something useful. But for this example, I'll just keep it as the default. Your username, that's what you use to log in. It'll be what you're called by the system. So it'll say it on your menu on certain desktop environments. And then your password can be anything. I'm just going to put 1 for my password, and it'll pop up saying too short, but it'll still let you do it anyway. It'll let us use the password anyway. And then I'm going to go log in automatically because it's a virtual machine. I don't care. And it also has the option to encrypt your home folder, which is pretty nice because if you didn't encrypt your drives, which you can do when you're on that screen where I said where it can just delete it and install Windows or whatever, it actually gives you the option to encrypt your drive. But on this, you can actually encrypt your home folder only, and that's pretty nice too, because if you lose your computer or if it's a laptop or something, someone steals it, they won't be able to get a hold of your information, which is usually stored in the home folder. So after putting all this in, you'll hit continue. And I think that's the last screen, and then it'll just give us the process of how it's doing, and it's basically just a waiting game. So you'll be presented with these nice slides, and you can click between them. It gives you a little bit of something to do while you're waiting for it to install. It's kind of like a little nice intro to Linux and some of the options that come with it. One thing that Ubuntu is really good for is their documentation and their support. You can go to ubuntu.com/support and get lots of help there. They also have a community-based forum there where you can ask people things, and you can get help that way. There's lots of people out there that are willing to help. Boy, it sure is taking a while to get the time from the local time server there. I can tell though that looking at the busy signals at the bottom though that it's still working. It's still installing. This is pretty much the boring part is just waiting for the whole thing to install. There really isn't much to do after you actually put everything in at once. It's mostly just a waiting game then. Hopefully, this will eventually time out and it'll continue. Just disconnected the network cable from it, so hopefully it'll time out and actually continue. Because I don't care about the time being set. I'm just trying to show you guys how to install this. I apologize, guys, for this being so boring and slow, but it is what it is. Again, like I said, if you install this on a real machine, it'll be much faster. This probably wouldn't be, but maybe about a 10-minute thing for it to install. On an actual machine, it's arguably much faster to install than it is Windows 10. I think we're getting there. I'm not sure if it was actually trying to get the... Oh, there we go, finally. Another cool thing that Linux or Ubuntu has is the ability to install snaps. Uh, if you've not installed software on Linux before, you can easily install it by literally typing sudo snap and then install and then whatever you're trying to install. So like sudo snap install Spotify, for example. You literally just type that out and you can install Spotify. This also includes LibreOffice, so um, if you need to do any kind of office work, typing out spreadsheets or typing out anything in Word, uh, or you can even opening Word documents. You can do that within LibreOffice. Okay, so it looks like we're getting close to about done here as far as the installation goes. Again, like I said, on a normal machine, this would be a lot faster and wouldn't take as long. Very, very exciting, isn't it? Okay, now it's installing Grub. Grub is the basically the bootloader. It pops up a list of operating systems, or if you don't even have anything but Linux installed, it actually allows you to get to safe mode, what Linux's version of safe mode is, in case your computer is misbehaving and you need to run it in a special mode in order to diagnose the issue. Probably going back time, I probably would have already have had this installed for you guys, so I could have just said next, and then presto, here you go, the installed Ubuntu. When this gets done, I'll show you guys the Grub bootloader and what it kind of looks like. If we could ever get to the end. Another thing is it includes Firefox. You also have the ability to install Chromium, which is basically Google Chrome, but it's Google's open source version of Chrome. So it's kind of like a Chrome Lite, so to speak. They also have Google Chrome itself for Linux as well. And you download it and install it kind of similar to how you do it in Windows. Although instead of it being a next thing, it just pops up and says, "Hey, do you want to install this?" Okay, you hit install, type your password in, and it installs everything for you. Linux also comes, or Ubuntu also comes with, excuse me, it comes with a Shotwell photo manager. So it's good for storing your photos. So if you're a photographer or if you just like taking family photos, this will allow you to store all your photos in, and you can edit them and change the exposure, you can't whatnot. It's anything you would do normally in Photoshop. You also have the option to install GIMP, which is an image editor, which does way more intense things probably than Shotwell does. It also has Rhythmbox music player. I haven't really played around with it much, um, but it's similar to how you do Shotwell. It allows you to store all of your music. You can connect to an iPod if you have an older iPod. This will actually connect up with it. You can use it to if you have MP3s. Uh, I'm sure not many people are doing that anymore because you can just get Spotify and have everything. But if you still rock the MP3s, you can put them into Rhythmbox and play all your MP3s through that. One of the cool things that it has is it has a software center where in Windows you're probably used to going around the web and downloading a file and having to install it to Linux that way. Well, or install it to Windows that way. Well, in Linux it's a bit different. You can still do that. Go on the internet and download something. In fact, you have to do that for a few things. I think Chrome still makes you do it that way. But for the vast majority of software, you would go into the software center, type in what you're looking for, and then hit install, and it installs it for you right then and there. It downloads it, does everything it needs to do, and it actually makes it really, really convenient and easy, and you don't have to worry about downloading clunky files or whatever. It does everything in one go. I think we're just about done with the installation. This is like, I think, the slowest install of Ubuntu that I've ever had. And just like I've said before, guys, you can change just about anything anything in Ubuntu. You have the option of changing. You don't even have to use the default GNOME 3 desktop environment that it presents you with. You can use KDE. You can use XFCE. You can use You can use GNOME 2 if that's still out there. I know that they've kind of changed to Mate now, but I'm pretty sure you could probably find a really old version of GNOME 2 that somebody still has out there. But even in the current desktop environment, you have the option of putting in, changing the background. You can add different bars, and they even have docks available, so you can make it sort of look like a OS 10. So it's not at all like Windows, where you're just stuck with, this is what this is going to look like, and there isn't anything you can do about it. You can basically mold it to how you want your computing experience to be. And so, in fact, while this is installing, I think I'm going to show you guys, since we just don't have to stay there and look at an installer the whole time. And I'm not sure why that's not back at the Rufus page. I still have that open. You ever try to look for something and it just isn't there? I'm having one of those days. Okay, well, I guess I'm not going to show you guys the what I was going to show you because uh, I can't get Firefox to show up as a window in OBS. So, but I was going to show you the different versions of Ubuntu that's out there. You're not stuck with just the default Ubuntu. They have other desktop environments that are included, other than basically what you're stuck with the regular Ubuntu. Think of it as different different aspects. Like if you have different models of cars, like you may have the Ford Escape, and then the Ford Escape LE and the Ford Escape XE and whatever. Those aren't real model numbers, but you kind of get what I'm getting at. Is there's you got the light model, and you got the fully loaded model, and then you got it's sort of like that, but not really any kind of like one is not better than the other as far as the different Ubuntu versions. It's all down to personal preference, and I guess application. Like you wouldn't put a really system heavy desktop environment on a really slow computer. You would want to put something light like Xubuntu that uses the XFCE desktop, so that it uses as little resources as possible so that you can actually do things while you're on the computer. And again, guys, I apologize. This is really the slowest installation I've ever seen. Like this is just appallingly slow. And I promise you install this on your own machine, it's not going to be this slow. It's only because of it being on a virtual machine that it's this slow. Yeah, here's a list of the. I don't have it on the screen because again, my Firefox isn't showing up in OBS, but there is Kubuntu, which uses the KDE desktop. There's Lubuntu, which uses the XXQT desktop, and there is Ubuntu Budgie, which uses the Budgie desktop environment. That one, I believe, actually has a dock at the bottom already, so that's what it has by default. There's Ubuntu Kalen. It says the Ubuntu Kalen project is turned to the needs of the Chinese users, providing a thoughtful and elegant Chinese experience out of the box. So that must already have like the Chinese wording and everything on the screen in case they can't read English. I don't know, what the really what that does, but it sounds interesting nonetheless. Um, there's Ubuntu Mate. Um, when you some people call it mat, some people call it Yomate. I don't, but there's different ways of saying it, but I call it Mate. That uses the old GNOME 2 desktop. Uh, After GNOME basically came out with their version 3.0, some people were like, "Hey, we like the desktop as is," and they took the open source code for GNOME 2.0 and basically decided to keep supporting it and improving it. And and GNOME was basically like the GNOME project was basically like, okay, but don't call it GNOME. So they said, okay, we'll call it Mate. And there's Ubuntu Studio, and it says Ubuntu Studio is a multimedia content creation flavor of Ubuntu aimed at the studio, at the audio, video, and graphics enthusiast or professional. And then there's my favorite is Xubuntu, and it is based on the XFCE desktop. And XFCE used to be pretty boring looking and really lacking, but they've actually really picked up the slack lately and made it not not as pretty as KDE, but they've made it at least decently interesting. Uh, Everything about it is just so snappy. Like you can install it on a system and it's just like bam, it's up. Well, now it's running the post installation stuff, so hopefully it's just about done. Again, this is the slowest install of Ubuntu that I've ever witnessed. I really ought to change the live stream to the slowest Ubuntu install ever. Probably going to end up running out of time here because I think I'm going to have to go pretty soon. Oh, finally. Okay, there we go. Okay, after the installation is complete, it'll say the installation is complete. Who would have thought? So you need to restart the computer in order to use the new installation, and the only option is to restart now. So we're going to do that. Now, I don't know what OBS is going to do here, so okay, so after you hit restart, it'll say please remove the installation medium and press enter. So you'll do that and then you'll hit enter. Okay. And then the system reboots and we should be booting into Ubuntu, or at least we'll see the grub. I'm not sure if we'll see the grub bootloader or not. It's kind of looking like we probably won't. Nope, no grub bootloader. So I believe the way to make it appear is you hold down the shift key while you're booting up your Ubuntu system, and it'll actually make grub appear. but for this case, since it's the only installation we have, it's choosing not to show it, which is actually fine. So now we're booting into our Ubuntu installation here. And again, guys, this normally doesn't take this long for it to boot up or for it to install. Okay, we're loading up the desktop environment here, and it shouldn't ask me to log in because I put that as automatic, so it'll go straight to the desktop. Just like if you did it in Windows 10, it would go straight to the desktop. I just wonder if I didn't give the virtual machine that much memory, and that's why it took so long to install. Is I only gave it a gig of RAM to mess with. Okay, finally we're at the Ubuntu desktop, and our installation is finished. So of course this would show up a lot, you know, it would be bigger than it is in this video, but this is pretty much your finished Ubuntu installation. So, hooray! Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know it was extremely boring waiting for it to actually install. I hope you guys go out and actually try out Ubuntu and give it a go. I mean, you really have nothing to lose other than your Windows install. So, of course, that's a joke. You could really actually install this without having Windows be removed from your computer at all, using the live version. But I have a feeling you will probably enjoy it after you give it a go. So go out there and download Ubuntu and give it a try. So I'll see you guys next time, and you guys have a good weekend coming up. See ya.